As Alan had said, we was asked for the last commission meeting to come up with some options on how we move forward with Carroll Lake. And we spent the last couple of weeks and come up with 3 options we'd like to review with you today. Yes.
Dwight, before you begin, I was going to let all the commissioners know, if you'll turn to your fisheries tab in your book, you'll have a overview of what he's fixing to present. That way we can follow it in there. Thank you, I'm sorry.
For a real brief overview of what we have up there, is several of you, most of you probably have never been there. It is an earthen dam, and it was built in 1949. It's 20-foot high levee. It's about 1,550 feet long, and it's 13 feet wide across the crest of it. In the spillway section, it has 4 gates. All 4 of those gates need to be replaced. One of them is what's called a service spillway gate. One is the low-level drain gate, which is a 24-inch diameter. And the 2 main gates is called an emergency spillway gates. There's 2 of them. Each one of them is 7 feet by 20 feet. All the gates are manually operated. So after the last commission meeting, we were asked to come up with some repair options. And we came up with 3 options. And at the end, there will be a spreadsheet which I will share with you and show you the cost of each one of them. But what we've called them is, for option number 1 is minimum repairs. And in a minute, I'll go into each one of these options in depth. But it involves repair of the spillway erosion, which is down below the existing spillway. And it also involves replacing the 24-inch drain valve. Option number 2 is what we call the replacement of the radial gates. It includes everything in option 1, replacing the 2 radial gates with new ones, replacing the service gate, and going up in the lake bottom along the bank and construct some causeways that could help create some better fishing opportunities in the lake. Option number 3 is, we call it the new spillway, and that's defined as an alternative project because that's what FEMA is going to define it. And if we do that option, we've got to go back through them and get approval to do this. Option number 3 involves everything in option 1 and everything in option 2, with the exception of the new radial gates. Well, the new radial gates would be, we would concrete up those openings, and we would construct a new spillway through the levee of the dam. I want to just talk about some additional requirements if we were to go with option 3. First of all, we'd have to have FEMA's approval, which we have to apply for. They would probably require some additional engineering and oversight. We might even have to have public meetings or public hearings. There would probably have to be more in-depth construction plans and specifications. They have to involve some hydraulic studies and analysis. And I think it would also involve more state and federal permitting if we went with option 3. This is an aerial overview of the lake. Of course, it's a couple of years old because you can see the lake is full of water. This is the entire lake area. It covers 110 acres. This is Highway 22. The spillway is located right here in the middle of the levee. This is the levee, runs north and south. There's a county road that parallels the lake to the south side. The reason I point out elevation 392 is that if we do anything here in the lake area that gets the elevation at 392 or above, it's going to cover a part of this county road. This is what it looked like in June of 2014, and Alan was talking about that the heavy rains came. Somebody in Region 1 took this photo. Here's the highway. This is the levee. Here's the spillway. And of course, you see there the south part of the levee is being overtopped. And during this is whenever the damage occurred at the radial gates. This was taken in September of 2014. After all the gates have been removed and all the water had been drained out. This is Clear Creek. That's what the levee dams up. As you can see, back here in the background is a fishing pier. It's greened up pretty well in about 3 or 4 months, but the lake went around through here, through the fishing pier, and way back up in that area. I'll go through each one of the options one at a time and kind of show you what it involves. Option 1 involves, this is the spillway to the left. This is Highway 22. Option 1 involves straightening up this bank. It was damaged during the flood, repairing that, putting some rock back on it to protect it, and also replacing the 24-inch drain valve. Option 2, it includes everything in option 1 that we just mentioned. The drain valve's over here, it's underwater right now. Option 2 replaces everything in option 1, and it replaces the 2 radio gates and the service gate. Here's a service gate over here. The radio gates goes in this opening here. It's 7 feet by 20 by 7. There's one that goes over here and one goes over here. The seal where the gate sit is at elevation 382. Gates are 7 feet tall. That takes us up to elevation 389. The top of the levee is at 395. One of the options, which is option 3 I'll talk about in a minute, concreting this up and building another spillway over here. Well, if you concrete this up and your new spillway is at elevation 389, you've only got 3 feet till you get to 392, and then you got water going over the county road, which is nearby. Also, we've been asked that if we don't put the gates back, in other words, if this is not put back, we just put back the drain gate and close it up, what do we have? Well, what you have is the water can't get over elevation 382. It just so happens the day we was up there a week or 2 ago, that's where it was. So the next photographs, if you pan to your right, that there's elevation 382. That's all you've got in the lake. Not very much water. Up here's the fishing pier. The water should be on up at 389 on up in here. If you continue to pan to your right, that's the middle of the lake at elevation 382. Again, it just gives you an idea of how much water you have in the lake if you don't put anything back. Not very much. Oh, here's the county road. Option number 3. It includes everything, and we discussed it option 1 and option 2, except the radio gates will not be replaced. We'll concrete those openings up, and they go, here's one, and there's one goes right here. The gates are now out. We'll concrete that up, and we'll go over here and create a new spillway through the existing levee, and we'll have to also improve this ditch line down through here because we've got to get the water back down to the bottom of the spillway. And here's the ditch that will have to be improved. This ditch will have to be widened down here to about 60 feet, about 30 feet up here to the end. It's got to be made deeper. It's got the elevation over here have to be brought up with some dirt. It has to be reworked. Those are the 3 options. And what we pulled together was a spreadsheet which lists out the 3 options, what the estimated costs are to the agency, what FEMA's participation would be, and what the shortfall would be. If you look at the left bottom of that spreadsheet, you'll see a couple of items there. FEMA broke it up into 2 items. Bank repair, which is basically the erosion repair at the spillway. FEMA's participation and the state would be $18,000, I think, and $44. The other project that they called it is the gates, or the gate, replacing one, and it's $117,000. And if you total both of those up, you're at $135,337 for 100%. If we apply for and go with the alternative project, which is option 3, they will cover 90% of the original amount, which is about $121,800. Okay, with that said, if we go back through the cost, option 1 has 3 items there. It's about $28,500 of cost to the agency. FEMA's participation is $18,000 That's $10,500 approximately of shortfall of funding. Option 2, we call replacing the gates, includes everything in option 1, the items in option 2 that we talked about. 173.3 cost to the agency, 61,000 FEMA participation, shortfall of about 112. If you go to option 3, which is the alternative project, it involves everything in option 1, everything in option 2, with the exception of the gates. We zeroed those out, but we're concreting it in. There's the cost for that. Spillway, engineering and permitting, 263 approximately, with 121.8 FEMA participation, a shortfall of about 141,000. Those are the 3 options that we've come up with some pretty good cost data. That's where we are.
Any questions?
I've got one.
Okay.
Dwight, last time we discussed this, I think we talked about the possibility of going back to FEMA and appealing their decision not to replace both gates. Have you called them back?
No, did not. Yeah, but that was discussed, but I didn't think that was ever anything that we were asked to do. I have discussed it with them twice when they made their original ruling, and they wouldn't change their mind.
What is the lake level that it needs to be at, just to put it back like it was?
It would be option 2.
389?
389. If you put those gates in, it takes you to 389.
All right, now, if are the gates function so if an emergency release, you can go open them to let the water out?
Correct.
Is the opening big enough if you concrete up to 389 and let the water, if it gets any higher than that, just run over that wall? Is that not enough to just hold it there if the water comes up?
That's not large enough opening, Commissioner. What TDEC has said they would consider was whatever passes through that opening that we're concreting up, which is 7 by 20. If we go off to the side and create a spillway that carry that same volume of water, they would strongly consider approving that.
But that's not in this.
That is not, because if you concrete them up and don't do something else, it's going to overtop the dam. I mean, it has no choice.
But you just said you could put another spillway in beside it.
You can. But that would have to be a part of that. If you concreted it up, you got to put in another spillway.
Correct. So you don't know what the cost of that is.
Spillway?
Another opening like you've got there without gates, just concrete work.
Well, no, that's I, under option 3. I and J.
Okay. Yeah, I'll think of something else in a minute. Go ahead.
Okay. Will any of these options help to prevent what causes damage in the first place? I mean, I gather you were talking about emergency
either one-
gates and,
Either one of them would, option 2 or option 3.
okay. Did an emergency gate fail or I understand it was an extreme rain event, but, I'm just wondering if we make these repairs, are we trying to prevent, doing our best to prevent?
That would probably be an answer I would lend to Alan Peterson, the regional managers, to
Okay,
address.
thank you.
I think option number 2, we're essentially putting it back to the situation we had before the flood. I don't know that will prevent the same thing happening again, but I can't imagine that in my lifetime we're going to see another event like we had. I mean, it was 10 inches of rain in about 3-4 hours. Nobody had a chance to get out there to crank open the gates. It was just such a rare event. 1,000-year flood, 500-year flood, I don't know. But I would assume that option number 3, if you keep in mind, this emergency spillway that Dwight's talking about, if we concrete that hole in, to satisfy TDEC or whoever, we have to create this new emergency spillway. Dwight's diagram shows we have to cut 6 feet down into the levee, 200 and,
Anywhere from 125 to 200, depending upon how deep you want to make the cut.
right, so you're cutting a 6-foot deep chunk out of the levee, 120 whatever feet. So in that situation, you wouldn't need anybody to crank open a gate. Obviously, you couldn't because it's concrete. But you wouldn't have to have someone out there to open a gate. The water's just going to pour through this opening. Unfortunately, it's expensive. I mean, it adds another, what is that?
It's 29,000?
Yeah, 125,000 in some permitting stuff, so I would hope that 500 years before another event like that happens I can live with that.
Alan, I've got a question then on the numbers, because the shortfall on option 2 shows 112,000, and the shortfall on the option 3 is 141,000. So to me, there's only a $29,000 difference there. So, is that correct?
That's correct, because I think if we go with option 3, and we can do an alternative project, and FEMA agrees to that, then we're able to expend 121,000 of FEMA dollars as compared to 61 in option 2.
Correct. And going back to Alan, option 3 is really the best option for us to go to if we want to prevent this ever happening again.
Maybe there are a lot of permitting difficulties and engineering difficulties and approval difficulties that may make it an option that's just nearly impossible to happen.
Okay.
Is that?
That's correct. The dam was designed in '49 to operate a certain way, and what we're doing is we're kind of altering that operation. We can do engineering and construction. What we have to do is I think we need to ensure as best as we can that the elevation going through that new spillway, if we do that, it's got to be at about 392 or less. If it gets over that road's going to go underwater. If you have another major rain, that road goes underwater, and someone's property is damaged, or someone is injured or killed because of trying to go across the water, no matter what we've done, even though it's been done correctly, you can assure that we're going to probably have some litigation action because of that. That's just my opinion.
This is an issue with option 3 as well, the flooding of the road.
That is the one we're talking about.
So option 3 is not an option.
Well, it is, but we have to be very, very careful in what we do, and I think, and go through. It's not a slam dunk that FEMA will even approve it or that TDEC, but I have had discussions with them, and they are certainly receptive to it.
So, which option do y'all recommend that we move forward
Option 2.
with? Okay. Good. That's what I was getting to. Mr. Chairman.
Does any of these, I know you had, in option 2, you had incorporated some dirt work, making more accessible points. Is that moving some of the silt out and building peninsulas?
It is. Yeah.
And basically the same size lake, though?
It's the same size lake. We're just going to move some of the dirt around, some of the silt around from the bottom over to the bank, and make some deeper fishing holes, more access for people to fish.
I'm assuming option 1 or option 2 would be the quicker on the timeline, I guess, that we could get accomplished.
Yeah, option 1, if you just do option 1, you saw where the water level is going to be.
Yeah.
It's not going to be much water in there.
I don't
so
think they will be happy with option 1.
I don't think they would either.
But option 2, option 3, it seems like we would be another year or so getting permits if we could get them, and then before we ever started anything.
Option 3 is not a slam dunk. There's a lot of hoops we got to go through. Option two, the gates can be replaced almost at any time. The dirt work has got to be done in dry season. That's July, August, September timeframe. So we've got to get ahead of the permitting and ahead of the engineering and try to get that pulled together. Whether that can happen this summer or not, I can't speak for TDEC and the Corps of Engineers, but we could look at doing that.
Has anyone talked to the county to see if they're willing to participate?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've had several discussions with County Mayor Kenny McBride, and we've worked with Mayor McBride on several other projects down there at the range complex that they have, Carroll County Shooting Complex. And the county is not committing any money per se from the county. I don't know that that's a complete thing that they've ruled out, but at this point they haven't. But I do know that Mayor McBride and Representative Andy Holt have both written the National Guard and asked for their help, as they did on the shooting complex. And they feel pretty good that that will probably happen. If it does, in either option 2 or 3, Dwight tells me he believes that would probably save us somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000. So there are a lot of things that go into that. The Guard may or may not be able to do it on a one-time basis. They may have to go back over several weekends or several drill periods, whatever their schedule works out to be, which may lengthen the amount of time. And it may be that in the end, it may turn out to be something that the agency completes on its own. But our preference would be to work with the Guard to help lower the expense and also to get buy-in from the county. I also mentioned to you that the reason, I'm certainly not an engineer by any stretch, but in talking to the Region 1 personnel and talking to Dwight, the reason that I favor option number 2 is because we have gotten a number of petitions, a number of letters, I know some of you all have as well, and by far the biggest option or the biggest preference from those people writing in is to restore the lake just like it was. Well, we know that it has silted in over the years till that is going to take some additional work. So rather than trying to dredge out the entire lake, which brings on a whole nother problem, what we decided would be a better option, and this is included in options 2 and 3, was to make essentially fishing peninsulas out of deepening the lake in certain areas, making little peninsulas that will offer greater areas for people to bank fish, which is what the only option they have really at this point. So we, taking that into account, we thought, okay, that's what the people really want down there. It's the cheaper of the 2 options to actually put the lake back in any form. And it also, at first I was option 3. And as more I thought about it, the more that Dwight explained to me some of the problems, I was thinking if we do option 3, we don't have to worry anymore about gates and raising and lowering, and we don't have to worry about those failing and on and on. But at the same time, because of the size of the spillway that we'd have to create as an emergency spillway around the side, it also has its own problems. It will silt in over time, grass will grow up through the riprap and on it, so we'll have a maintenance problem there as well. So either way, that maintenance is going to come in. And in the future, if we ever decide that we want to do anything to lower the lake level down to do some other construction project or whatever it might be, repairs or anything else, if we don't have the gates, that's not an option. So that's the reason I've personally settled on number 2.
Commissioner Teague, do you have a question?
I had a question for Dwight. Could you explain a little bit about what entailed in constructing the 3 causeways? What exactly is that?
Well, we think it entails, because Al and I have talked, he wants causeways, is it 50 feet wide, maybe by 100 feet long, maybe 3 of them, and we just worked up what we think the minimum should be so we could come up with a cost, but we could, if we're building them, we can build them almost any dimension and anywhere we need to.
Yeah, obviously our 2 shortcomings is with the gates and the causeways. Is that something we can do in-house? And where are these bids from?
Which one, you talking about the causeways?
The gates. Just,
The gates came from a local vendor nearby.
we can't build the gates?
No, they're metal gates. They're metal, fabricated, and installed. So it would take a metal fabricator.
Okay. Just seems like we got a lot of guys within the agency with ability, and, I would
we could,
surprised if we
we've
don't have a
removed the
fabric.
old ones, we removed them, ripped them out, but, they're fabricated, certain dimensions and certain types of metal. And a fabricator shop nearby is the one who gave us the price for the
Okay.
gates.
Any other questions?
How much of this shortfall is out-of-pocket cash money?
Number two, I think it's about $55,000 or $56,000. You're talking about it will be new money, as we call it.
Right.
Well, if I'm looking at option two, it would be C, 8,000, 43,000 of D, 5,000 of E. That's $56,000, I think, so. The rest of it would be in-house work that we already have budgeted somewhere.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, does Carroll County own the land? This is not TWRA-owned land, is it?
We own it.
We own it, okay.
Y'all told us a couple months ago that how many licenses how much revenue you think you generate on that lake?
According to the figures that Dave Rizzuto put together, if you fish that lake, it's one of our agency lakes that requires a daily or annual permit. And I think he said it generates about $3,000 a year in those permit fees. You could also factor in, they also have to buy a fishing license and some other stuff, so it's somewhat more than that, but.
Mr. Chairman, it would appear to me that I think the county and Mayor McBride indicated last time he was here that they would participate. And they probably hadn't budgeted anything because they don't know what they're gonna have to budget. So we need to decide if we wanna do a 10-year investment in that lake, and it's $3,000 a year, we come out of new money, $30,000, and let them come out in new money with whatever the difference is.
I think there should be some participation.
I don't know that I should speak for Mayor McBride, but I know in conversations I've had with them, they'd like to help however they can. It's a question of whether they can legally give money to state agency. And I hate to have to talk to the commission about this three commission meetings in a row, but I have a funny feeling when we meet in April in Paris, we'll be talking about this again. So Mayor McBride, and I'm sure a lot of other of the Carroll County people will be at that meeting to discuss this with you. We're under no deadline to take any action. If the commission chooses to take action today and be done with this, that's your choice. We have several options right now. Even if you took action and put the money in the budget right now, like Dwight said, it'll be the dry months before we can do anything, and our budget year ends June 30th, so we'd have to request a carry forward. So right now, we're not in any huge hurry to pass this budget unless you choose to.
Alan, can we kind of go back to them and tell them our plan is option 2 and what the cost is, what the shortfall is, and just point blank say how much y'all willing to put in? We need help.
I think
Before the April meeting.
right.
That way we know.
Absolutely. And I think the people of Carroll County would be tickled to death if we said, this is what we want to do, this is what it's going to cost, and any help. I think if they knew that a year or two from now they were going to get their lake back, they'd be tickled to death.
Okay. Can you do that then?
Okay. Do you want to? All right. Let me
Mr.
see if
Chairman,
I
I
get
think
this.
we need to give them a number.
Well, that's what I said. We're gonna go,
Okay.
we have our estimates here.
Okay.
I think we ought to just tell them what we're gonna do, and here's what the shortfall is. Can you do this?
Okay. my request, I guess, then, and correct me if this is not what you're looking for, would be,
$56,000, I'd assume, is what he just,
well, the option number 2 would be a total of, what is 112,000 shortfall. That, the request would be that, the commission indicate its preference to, repair Carroll Lake using option number 2 and commit to, the 112,256 shortfall, and also look into any assistance the people of Carroll County or the governments in Carroll County can offer to help us with that.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about deciding and making a decision about what we're gonna do and giving them
A hard
the
figure.
number that we need them to invest. We want $56,000 from the city and the county. Or we want $30,000, or whatever that figure is.
Right.
We're willing to do this if you'll do this, and give them a number.
Mr. Chairman.
As Ms. Woodson pointed out on our agenda, it says we're getting an update today. We're not actually gonna take any formal vote or action on it. But I think what we're doing is saying, we're going with option 2, how can you help us? And, give them these figures and say, you know, we need assistance.
And
And we will be in Paris in April. And I think that they would like to be involved in the discussion before we make a formal vote on it, I believe.
And you would like us to have some discussions between now and the April commission meeting with Mayor McBride to try to get him to,
I think so. I think that would be good. That way we would know where they stand
okay.
and how we can, and it might influence our vote in April, what we're gonna do.
You okay with that, boss? Okay, we can do that. Anything else?
Any more questions? Any more questions from the public?
I have one other thing I'd like to add.
Okay.
Sounds like we're settling on option 2. One other thing about option 3 is that we have a year, which ends in September, to apply for the alternative project. But the sooner the better. If something changes, if you decide in August you want to go with option 3, it may be a little late, so.
I think we're set on 2.
Okay, just want to give you that information.
Again, any comments from the floor? Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Watson. Moving from fisheries on to the Budget Committee, it is the David Watson show again.